Hi lovely and darling viewers, it's Jen here at Check Her Joy. This time I'm reviewing How Long Till Black Future Month by N K Jemison. I started reading this in February because it's Black History Month and I thought it tied in well, but it's a collection of short stories and I've been in a reading slump, so it kind of took me longer to get through. Like, it was super easy to just read one short story and then just stop, which is why it took like over a month to read. This is a collection of science fiction or fantasy short stories. Most of them have female main characters, and I think they all have people of color as their main character also. I really liked the premise of like going into the future, thinking about Afrofuturism, but then the collection of short stories is really all over the place. There's steampunk in here, and being off in space, being on Earth. Some of them are historical fiction, some of them pull from like, I think there's like Egyptian mythology in here. So just from everything, which I loved. There's a total of 22 short stories in here. They're all a little bit different and a little bit unique. They all have an element of fantasy or mystery or something really intriguing happening that's a little bit different. Almost all of these I just absolutely loved and ate up. There were a few that just fell flat for me personally, but somebody else might enjoy them. In the introduction, N K Jemison talks about her journey with short stories, how it wasn't something she was really interested in, but people who were helping her write, I think like a conference she went to or something, encouraged it, that it was a good way to just like explore different worlds, and so you definitely see the different worlds happening in here. There's also a wide range of when she wrote these, over the last like decade and a half, I think. So some of them aren't quite as good, and it looks like maybe they were the first ones she wrote, moving into ones where she's won the Hugo Award 3 times in a row. Like, she's amazing as an author. So there's a range in her abilities also, I think, in here, the writing style. The first story in here is one of my favorites, but people have been saying that it's kind of weak, and so they started reading this, and then it wasn't their thing, and so they only got a couple short stories in, so I don't know if it would have been my first choice. So the first one in here is The Ones Who Stay and Fight, and there's this like utopian world, and it's like this perfect African village where everything is in harmony, and they've had racism in the past, but they've like worked it out, and there's this weird bird festival, which is like an analogy for something. I swear it's the first story and I read it like a month and a half ago. But I love the utopian aspect. But then there's a threat to the utopian, and how dangerous it could be. Like, they could slide back into this racist history, which I thought was fascinating. One of my other favorite short stories in here is A Fluent Engine, which is a steampunk story with a spy from Haiti who comes in on a dirigible and is trying to get help from the scientist, who's the guy who doesn't want to help her, but the guy's sister also has been studying all the science, looking at all his textbooks, and so the shift becomes to get the sister to help instead. This one also has an LGBT theme to it, as the two main characters are both women and kind of instantly smitten with each other, which I totally loved about this story. And the steampunk aspect of being in like Victorian, I think they're in New Orleans or something. Like, it was fun. Not like the standard setting I was expecting. And they're both women of color, so dealing with race in that time period. Also the Haiti thing, because Haiti is a country entirely of blacks, but they're blacks who have gained their independence, and so they are the majority. But they still have to do trade and everything with the rest of the world. So the race becomes really interesting through that lens. The last story in here, which is Sinners, Saints, Dragons, and Haints in the City Beneath the Still Waters. It follows this guy in New Orleans when Katrina is happening, and he gets stuck staying behind. There wasn't room for him in his family car, so he sent his mother and sisters ahead with the money, and he's like, I'm going to wait out the storm. You know, we've had hurricanes before, and then it becomes so much more worse than he was expecting, with the flood of waters rising, and then the Ninth Ward, which got hit the worst. So there's a survival aspect of how are we going to get through this hurricane. He's looking after the neighbor across the street, who's this elderly woman in her 80s who doesn't want to leave because there's nowhere else to go. Like, she's so old that, you know, if it's her time, it's her time. But there's also the fantasy aspect of these dragons in the water, and he's like interacting with one of them and is talking, and then there's this bigger danger in this demon spirit that is threatening to destroy all of New Orleans, like causing even more damage than just the hurricane on its own. And so the fantastical element of that. And the Cuisine de Memories, one of them is a restaurant where they can create any meal you've ever eaten or any meal in the past, as long as you can give them a time. You don't have to tell them what the ingredients are, and they can make it perfectly, which was such an interesting and intriguing concept. There's a story in here where we have like New York having to be reborn, which was so weird, and there's like a main character who is a male and is having to be the midwife to like an entire city. I just love these ideas, and all these worlds I just got sucked into them, and I wouldn't mind reading an entire book about these characters, or they could have been expanded. But there was also nothing in these stories where I felt like they weren't finished either. Like, they were complete story arcs within themselves, and we felt character development, and the rating itself is really good. So I really enjoyed How Long Till Black Future Month. I totally recommend it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Probably could have given it 5. Kind of in the middle there. But I'm definitely going to be checking out more of N K Jemison's work. Let me know in the comments below if you have read How Long Till Black Future Month and what you thought of it. Do you have any recommendations for where to start with N K Jemison's work? Well, where to go next? Or similar reads. So peace out. I love you guys and keep reading. Bye.